Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about something different. We're not going to do politics. We're not going to do business. Occasionally we try to bring you information about the people in our community who are helping the vulnerable people in our community. And we have a great organization here in Fairfax County called Homestretch, and I am delighted tonight that we have Christopher Fay with us. He is the Executive Director of Homestretch, Inc., and we're going to find out what that organization is doing to help people in Fairfax County. But first I want to say, Christopher, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come and talk to us.
It's my absolute delight. Glad to be with you. Thank you.
So first, who are you? Because you're the Executive Director of Homestretch.
Right.
So have you always done that?
No, actually I started as a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker many years ago in New York, and I ended up making a documentary about homeless men and women who were living underground in an abandoned Amtrak tunnel. And I was so compelled by the individuals that I met and their stories that I determined that I should do something more than just make a film. So after that I started a program for the homeless and never looked back. That was in New York, and then I came here about 7 years ago to take over Homestretch from the founder, and have been here all that time.
So tell us about Homestretch then. What does it actually do? It deals with homelessness, right?
Yes, the mission of Homestretch is to take a homeless family, put them in a home, and then surround them with the services they need to get back onto their feet. And it's a very dynamic program. It's a rigorous program. Our goal is for it to be transformative. We take a family who is homeless, they have children under the age of 18. It's a requisite that they be in crisis, be homeless, and they have young kids. Well,
there are a lot of programs that you read about that are going to try and do this. So is this a government program, first of all, or is this...
Well, we have some support from the government. We get support from various segments, including the City of Falls Church, Fairfax County, the state of Virginia, and some federal funding. But over 60% of our funding is private.
Okay.
So it's not a government program per se, because we design the program around what we think works. And then find those to support us who believe in what we're doing.
So are you a 501c3 charity? Can people contribute?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And we rely a great deal on that, both on financial contributions and on volunteers. So we have, last year we had about 800 volunteers who stepped forward to do one thing or another for the organization. We provide an enormous array of services for the families, because when they come to us, they genuinely are in crisis.
So what are you defining as crisis then?
Well, they're unemployed, or I'm talking about the adult, of course. The adult is unemployed. It's usually a single mother with 2 to 3 or 4 children, and she has been homeless for several months to a year, and she has no income, very few possessions, very few friends, and very few opportunities, because if she had had those, she would have not come to us from the shelter. They go first to a shelter, and then from a shelter to us. And we take families that can't be helped at the shelter stage.
Well, now, there are a number of people in the shelters, at least from what I read. So how do you decide who gets into this program? Because you can't take everyone, I'm assuming.
No, and the shelters try and, there's a very excellent system within Fairfax County in which you try and sort of create the best possible process for someone to go through homelessness and find the right place. So someone else at some other agency will have done an initial screening, and they will have recognized that this is a family that needs Homestretch. Now, what does that mean? It means that they cannot make it on their own. They are going to need serious support in the terms of helping getting a job, but even more than that, getting the training to be able to have a better job. The average income of a mother when she comes to us is about $7.50 an hour. So it's relatively minimum wage. And she has several kids. So she cannot support her family on that. She's going to have to learn some kind of skill. So we have an emphasis on not just employment, but employment training and going to school. A lot of our families go to school and work, both, so that they can develop the resources and the skills to double or triple their income. A lot of our families come into us with debt. Nobody ends up homelessness willingly. It's a last resort to end up on the streets with your kids. And many of them have used whatever credit they've had to try and pay their bills. They've used their credit card to pay their rent, and that all runs out. So by the time they come to us, their credit is shot.
Well, how are these people who have had issues with drugs? I mean, what's the standard profile of somebody?
That's a great question, Tina. The majority of our families, 60% of the families that come to us, are homeless principally because of domestic violence. Yeah. So these are women who have been in a home and they have decided that it was so bad in that house they would risk being homeless in order to be safe. The consequence of leaving the abuser was homelessness. 60%. So, and there's always children involved. So it's a very courageous thing for them to do. But they also, they realized that it was just too bad in that household.
Now, is it a requirement to participate in Homestretch that you have children? Is that part of
yes,
the deal?
We're programming for homeless families.
Okay.
So they all have children. And it can be any number of children. We might have, we had a woman just moved in recently, had a baby, just a single mom and a baby. We also have families with up to 8 children.
Oh my gosh.
But there has to be children in the family.
Where do you find housing for somebody who has 8 kids? That's a lot
It's
of
not
children.
easy. Not easy in an area like Fairfax County,
Right.
where housing is very expensive.
Well, where do you, I mean, let's talk, I mean, I want to go back to the people in the program, but let's skip ahead a second here. Where do you find the housing for these people? Because I just would think there would be a whole lot of that, what is it, NAMBY or whatever it is, not in my backyard going on?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is all of our housing is scatter site. So it's located within the community, and none of it is congregated in one place.
Okay.
So it's secret. So there may be a family living right next door to you.
Really?
And the genius of that is it allows us to be able to help domestic violence victims, because nobody knows how to find these families. It's just a mom with some kids going off to work, going off to school, and the kids are in school. So they can be hidden. And we find the housing in any number of different ways. We're always trying, some of the housing is rented, so we'll go rent from an owner. They know who they're renting to. They usually buy into our mission. And over half of it is owned. And we've been able to buy that often through the help of HUD.
I mean, you own it yourself?
The organization
owns it?
Yes.
Oh,
we own
wow.
36 units scattered around Fairfax County in lots of different areas in the county.
That's amazing. It wouldn't have occurred to me that you actually owned these places.
Right. Well, it gives us a lot of freedom, and it gives us some equity for the organization, so we have a solid financial footing.
So you take these people, and is there some test they have to pass? So they do this initial screening at the homeless shelters. Do you then just interview people?
But the interview is, it's usually 2 to 3 hour long interview, because we want to find out everything we can about the family. So as we plan to help them, we know what it is we're facing. We know what the obstacles are and what the reasons for them. The only reason we wouldn't take a family is if they are lying to us about something very significant, because we have to start off with an honest and trusting relationship.
Okay.
But we don't turn people away based on problems they have. We assume they come in with compound problems. That's why they presented themselves to us.
Okay. So you get somebody in, they've got a bunch of kids. How do you determine where you're going to put them? Is it just what happens to be open at the time?
It is, and it's based on the size of the unit. So we won't take a family with 6 kids unless we have a house big enough for them. And that's a relationship with the shelters. So the shelters will send us someone and say, here's a family, can you take them? And we'll say, well, we do have a unit that is appropriate to the size of the family, so let's set up an interview. So the family doesn't even know they've been referred unless there's a good chance that we can take them. We try and set it up so that the families don't feel like this is, I have to get all nervous about this interview and I might not get in. The intent is to take the family if we interview them.
So if the shelter sends somebody to you, what's the likelihood? What percentage of the people actually make it through? The alarms don't go off? You don't
Over 90%.
Okay, so you got a good shot. If you get
but
the
there is an initial screening, because the people at the shelter know about us and they know what we offer and what we ask of a family. So they usually will screen out somebody they think doesn't want to do what we ask them to do. I said we're a rigorous program, and what we do is we want them to be able to address the problems in their life and try and fix them. So if a person has no skill, we would like them to be able to develop a skill. Now it can be a skill of their choosing. We're not going to determine for them what career they choose, but they need to choose a career. If they haven't learned the language, they are going to need to learn the language. So we ask them to work with us, create a plan with an ambitious plan, because we have so many services that we can surround them with. The likelihood of them making rapid progress is great. A lot of our families make tremendous progress in the time they're with us. Give you an example. I said one of the requisites for coming in is that you have to be in crisis and broke and homeless with kids under the age of 18. Yet, 10% of our graduating families become first-time home buyers. That means they have done an enormous amount of work in a very short period of time.
That's truly amazing.
They've cleaned up their credit, they've increased their income, they stabilized all the turbulence in their life, and a bank could sit down with them and realize, yeah, this is someone I want to take a risk on because they seem to be, they have it together.
That's remarkable, because it's hard enough for regular first-time home buyers to get loans and to do that type of thing.
I think it's because the banks recognize home stretch, and they realize that in order to have accomplished what this family did in 2 years means that they have developed a tremendous amount of discipline, and they're likely to be able to keep it up.
And is 2 years the average amount of time, or is that the maximum?
No, and actually some families can move through more quickly, and some families may need to stay longer. We have families who present even more complex problems that stay 3 years or more, and require what's called permanent supportive housing. That tends to be for families who have some kind of disability, mental disability or physical disability. Like we've had several women in the last few years who came to us because they were domestic violence victims. And as we worked with them, we realized that something wasn't right, and after testing found out that they had suffered brain damage because of the beatings of their husbands. It's terrible. Some of the stories are really it's incredibly traumatic what some of these women have gone through.
Oh, that's amazing. So, but you can still then work with them.
Yeah, we have a different plan, because obviously they're not going to make the same kind of, they're not going to be going out and being able to achieve the same things as somebody who doesn't have a brain injury. So we'll adjust our plan and adjust the services so they can stay longer and they can work on achieving other things that they might be able to achieve.
And when you say the supportive housing, is that the housing that you own or you rent, or do you get them into a different government program?
Both. Sometimes they will move on to a different program that is equipped to help them, and sometimes they'll stay with us. The important thing is that they find the balance, they find the safety, and that they can stay and continue to achieve the things that are important.
Okay. Well, we are going to be going to break, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking with Christopher Fay. We're going to talk about the kids that are in home stretch and what's being done. Stay with us.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100 ways to know more, do more.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
We're back. My name's Bettina Lawton. I'm your host, and tonight we have Christopher Fay with us. He is the Executive Director of Homestretch here in Fairfax County. Homestretch works with homeless families. So we're going to talk some more about what he does. I do want to find out, Christopher, if there is any population that you see coming in now that's new. Is it the same types of folks today that were there 5 or 10 years ago, or is it different?
No, as a matter of fact, it's an ever-changing landscape. We always have to be nimble so that we can be responding to the actual clients that are coming to us. It's very important that we be client-centered and that we recognize who it is that's presenting themselves to us, and then we adjust our plans and our services to them. And it's so interesting, our fastest growing population right now are homeless veterans. And again, these are with children, and so far it's all been women, female veterans who've done active duty and for one reason or another become homeless, and they still have their kids with them.
Now, are they also in the category of the domestic abuse, or is this more, because homelessness is a big deal for veterans?
There has been some domestic violence in those families.
Okay.
But it can be any number of things that have happened to them. There could be post-traumatic stress disorder, could be physical disability, and in some cases it's simply the hardship of finding life as a civilian, translating the skills of an enlisted person and finding a job, and they have kids. Because it's a tough marketplace out there. So we look at everyone who comes in differently, but we have realized that we're doing very well with the veterans. So we decided we want to open up as many possibilities for homeless veterans as possible. And now 10% of our population, and we expect a year from now it'll probably be 20% of the people we're serving.
Well, you know, they would seem to be sort of a great risk, so to speak, because they've had to have discipline in their lives. They've had to have goals.
That's right.
And so it's kind of like if you can reorient them and sort of take away some of that immediate crisis you talked about, they've demonstrated at least once in their life that they could do it.
That's right. We found that it's been a little easier than we thought. When I first decided we were going to address it, we thought, well, let's make sure we have as many services as possible. We want to be able to address psychological problems, brain injury problems, physical disability problems, depression. But we found that we have such a comprehensive array of services that they fit right in and really like taken off. All the families that have come in as homeless veterans have been doing extremely well in the program. So it's been very encouraging.
So let me ask about, because I want to turn to the kids, but first, you keep talking about this array of support and education and employment and that type of stuff. Talk a little bit about the average person who comes in. What do you actually do when you say you give them education support or training, or how does that work?
Well, they all get case management, but they also work with an employment counselor to find a job, and if they also want to go to school, we will help them find a scholarship so they can be in school and working at the same time. Again, it goes back to the goal that they want to be able to achieve moving forward in their life dynamically toward a career. So they're career-oriented. But there's other things that have to be addressed. Many people have legal problems, so they're going to need legal services. They may not have a car. They may not have adequate transportation, yet they have all these children to schlep around. They're going to need transportation assistance. They need child care assistance. They might need to be learning the language. They're going to need ESL classes. They might not have a GED. They're going to need a tutor. So we provide all of those things. And in addition, we provide a tremendous amount of services to the whole family, meaning to the kids. So I'll give you a few examples. Every child gets a birthday cake and a birthday gift on their birthday. At Christmas time, they're going to get an enormous array of gifts so that the parents don't have to even worry about Christmas gifts. Same thing at Thanksgiving. They get a whole Thanksgiving feast. In terms of school supplies, we make sure the child has everything they need for school. Every child gets a bicycle. Wow. We have winter clothes, summer clothes drives. They get free shoes on us. And if they need medical help, we're going to help them make sure that the kids get eyeglasses or ear exams or whatever they need. After school fees, school uniforms, we'll make sure all of that is covered. Here's the idea. We're asking the parent to work extremely hard for transformative change in their life in a relatively short period of time. 2 years, it's like they're racing to get this done. And we're saying to them, if you work that hard, we'll guarantee that your kids have everything they need while they're here so you can achieve. And that's what we do. So they don't have to worry about the kids.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you had like 800 volunteers. Is that what some of these volunteers are doing, the ESL stuff, or helping you collect the clothes, or just, you know, do the backpack
Everything
stuff,
from painting and fixing up apartment. We have people like who come in and decorate the apartments. We have teams that come and paint the apartments. Teams of people who do the landscaping for the outdoor of the apartments. People who will go out and recently we did all our tax returns. We did over 100 tax returns for our families in the program and some of our graduates. And it was done primarily by tax accountants who gave their time. All of our legal services are done pro bono for the organization.
There's a lot of opportunity for people who really want to contribute their own personal skills. It's not like you've got to go out and, if you're an accountant, you know, make a dinner. You can actually contribute accounting services. You can
contribute exactly in the area of your expertise. As a matter of fact, that's ideal for us. But some people actually like to get away from it and do something entirely different. You know, so we might have an accountant deciding, no, I'd rather paint an apartment, and they can do that too. They can volunteer with the kids or with the adults, or they can do it something behind the scenes, serve on a committee, help us do food drives or clothing drives, or collect vacuum cleaners. You know, all the things that families need.
Well, let's talk some more about the kids, because you have a summer camp, right? You do run some kind of summer program?
We don't run a summer, no, but what we do is we work with the summer programs and make sure the kids get in. Like we work with a summer camp, a sleepaway camp, very closely, and make sure that whatever child wants to go to that camp can, at no expense to the family.
Sleepaway camp is pretty aggressive. I mean, even kids who come from what would be considered normal family circumstances can have a lot of difficulty with that separation anxiety thing going away.
Yeah, it can be tough, but you know, generally after the first day,
they're ready to go.
They're having so much fun that they forget that they're not with mom anymore.
So now, what other kind of programs do you have for these kids then? Because I think
well, we just opened a licensed daycare facility. We're very proud of it. It's called Kids Stretch, and it's a special program for children aged 3 to 5. And this is based on the realization that homeless children were often not ready for school. They've been schlepped around, they've gone through trauma, and they may not be at the same speed as other kindergartners. So we wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to give a structured, safe, fun learning environment for those kids. We also opened this last year an after-school program for teenagers. You know, I mentioned that the average parent is a single mom who's going to school and working. And so she's working long hours. She gets home, she's tired. She doesn't have a lot of time to make sure her teenager is occupied doing the right things. So we opened a program for these teenagers that concentrates on academics and on life skills and on recreation, doing fun things and learning at the same time. And to make sure their grades are competitive. So, you know, our kids generally do very well in school because we surround them with such intense services, and every child needs to be tutored, can have a tutor.
So how does this, because you were saying that you can place, when we were talking about the homes, you said you can place people in them and they're coming out of abuse situations, and so they're safe there. When you run these kinds of daycares or the after school, do you have to sort of make sure the children know they're not supposed to say where they are, or how do you protect them in that kind of environment?
The parents generally do that kind of teaching. It's up to the parent to work with their child to disclose what they want to disclose. We make a promise to the family and to the children that we will tell no one. It's all very, very secret. Even the schools, when we communicate with the schools, it's with the administrators. So they know that this is a homeless family and getting their services, but it's not something that anyone would never need to know. The little kids generally don't even know that they're in a homeless program. They just think they have all these great aunts and uncles. Teenagers know. You know, they're smart enough. They know that they were in a shelter. They know what that was. But they don't have to tell. And there's nothing that we do will disclose it. So all of our after-school programs are just for them. It's not mixed with other kids. So there's no way that they're going to be embarrassed by, you know, some neighbor kid saying, you're homeless.
Because that's what I would think with the teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
That would be just devastating kind of thing.
Yeah, they could be teased. Kids will tease each other for anything.
Right, right. And
so it's our duty to protect them.
And is there any difficulty with Fairfax schools in placing these kids?
No, you know, the school system, both Falls Church City Schools and Fairfax schools are fantastic. They have been really marvelous partners with us. We're very fortunate. You know, a lot of programs for the homeless are located in bad neighborhoods because you think poor people and poor neighborhoods, poor schools. DC has a lot of that problem. we're very, very blessed to be in an area where we have excellent schools and excellent people there who understand homelessness. So one of the reasons I think we're successful in helping families is our partnership with excellent schools.
Yeah, well, that's good to know, because that would be one of the things that I firmly believe, that education is one of the ways that people get themselves out of poverty and homelessness.
Absolutely, it is absolutely. And if somebody can grasp that love of education and feel the joy of learning, then they're on a journey to great achievements.
Well, now you've got them spread out, the families spread out to these different locations. How do you get them all? How do you get these children all to these locations for their
well, that's why transportation is one of the great barriers. So we have to be able to try and help them with, most families when they come to us don't have a car, so they're taking multiple buses to school and work, and it's hard on these mothers. But over time we're usually able to get them a car. Once they're employed, they might be able to buy a car at a highly discounted price. And so usually after around the 1 year mark, the families have acquired a vehicle that they can afford the insurance, and it starts to get better and better. Okay. But transportation is one of the big barriers. A person might get a job, but they can't get to work.
Right.
They might have child care, but they can't get the child to the child care. So transportation is one of those things that prevents people from moving forward. We have to have that as a service we provide.
Well, now, how do you raise the money? Are you an organization that has big galas? Do you do little fundraisers?
We do events. We do 2 events every year, and we're always looking for money. Only about 40% of our grant money is from government sources, and that's been shrinking. In this tough economic times, government doesn't have as much money to give away.
Right.
So 60% of our funding comes from private donors, from foundations, from corporations that want to support us. So a lot of my time and a lot of some of my staff time is looking for money, writing grants, showing that we could be competitive. One of the things that works in our favor is that we're highly successful at what we do. Okay. We had a group of George Mason students in April of last year do a poll of our graduates that have gone back for several years to see how they're doing. 100% of those that they polled were still housed and employed.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Now, with that kind of ratio of success, it helps make us competitive. And I mentioned 10% of our families do so well that they become homeowners.
That's amazing.
You can take a program like Homestretch and turn it into a story of personal transformation.
That is wonderful. I'm so glad you came and talked with us, because
thank you.
It's a great story. You want to check it out, look on the web, Homestretch. It's in Fairfax County. Thank you so much for coming. We'll be back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah. No. Sam's. No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done.
D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice, we'll allow it. All right,
What are those?
Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time!
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired. You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs? Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice-yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. A message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital Association.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm Bettina Lawton, your host, and today we are talking about people in Fairfax County who are doing good for the people who are vulnerable in our society. Not everybody has the kind of advantages that many folks here do, and fortunately, there are people who care enough to take the time out of their busy day and their schedules to try and help the less fortunate. So we have with us Gary Levine. Now, Gary I know because he's a business guy, and that's how I know him. He is the president of WSI Webmark, which is a digital media marketing company. So Gary, I want to first of all welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking time out because I know you're busy running all over and doing these amazing media things. Every time I hear you give a presentation on social networking or content marketing, I walk away going, I didn't know that. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about the other way that you contribute apart from helping people achieve their business success, and that is as a board member of something called First Star. Right. Which is what? I'd never heard of First Star until you mentioned it.
First Star is an organization that was founded in 1999 to focus on issues surrounding abused and neglected children around the country. Mostly kids who are in the foster system because they've been abused or neglected and taken away from their natural families. And we started by doing advocacy work, doing legal work, trying to make the system more effective. And in the last few years, we've added a dimension of trying to change one of the more dismal statistics from that population, which is that while over 30% of kids from regular families will go on to get a four-year college degree, only 3% of the kids who come out of the foster care system will end up with a four-year degree. And that leaves them in an awfully vulnerable position as they go out into society.
Well, let me ask you about how long you've been involved with this. So First Star gets founded in '99. When did you get involved with it?
I got involved in 2011. Okay. A friend of mine had become the executive director, had called for some web advice, and I was too eager to give it. And so we ended up redesigning firststar.org, which became a repository of all sorts of information about the area. And it's been a labor of love ever since.
Well, I was on firststar.org in order to get ready to talk with you about First Star. And I was amazed at the amount of information that you can get on this subject. So I highly recommend to people to go to firststar.org if you're interested in abused and neglected children, because it has all kinds of reports on it. It also has a bunch of statistics on it that frankly are depressing. I must tell you, they were just horrible. Now, it does list the mission, which I thought was a great mission. I don't know who wrote the mission statement. But they improve the lives of America's abused and neglected children by strengthening their rights, illuminating systematic failures, and igniting necessary reform. I mean, it's a very kind of uplifting mission statement for what's a very difficult area.
Yes.
So you said you did this with legal matters. I mean, what does that involve? Is this like helping children who are in the system someplace?
We do join in certain cases as friends of the court and places where we think precedent needs to be changed. We write model laws that we recommend to state legislatures around the country. And we do research. We do a couple of report cards where we rank the states on how well they do against things like protecting children, transparency in the deaths and near deaths that take place within the system. And also providing legal rights to kids, but legal counsel to kids. Oddly enough, the state and the family are entitled to legal counsel, but in 39% of the states, the kids themselves are not entitled to legal counsel.
Really?
Yes. So they have ad litems that represent their best interest, but they're not necessarily lawyers, and they're not bound to represent the interest of the child. They're as the child wishes. They are to determine on their own what they think is in the best interest of the child. So the child has no voice really in many places.
I had no idea it was like that.
Yes.
Because it would seem natural to say, the state, the parents, and the kids. But on the other hand, I mean, this is Virginia. Although I read some of those reports, and Virginia didn't come out so badly.
No.
But a lot of people think, and I remember years ago with Marian Wright Edelman had the Children's Legal Defense Fund in Virginia, in D.C. is where it's located. And I remember years ago hearing people say, children don't have any legal rights. This is a bunch of, liberal wackos just trying to create, more special interests. And they were kind of defining children as a special interest, and that the state was somehow interfering with a parent's rights. I mean, what do you say to people who sort of take that view? Other than that they're wrong.
I was going to say, they don't understand the legal system. I mean, the way the system is set up, all the parties really need legal representation. And kids don't vote.
Right.
And so they don't get a voice in the system. And it's a somewhat paternalistic and frankly outdated view to ignore their voice in these things. And the court can ask them their opinion on things, but that's not the same thing as having legal counsel, as you well know, being an attorney. So,
well, I know in Virginia, and I don't do this work, many, many years ago, Steve Shannon, who was a delegate and then ran for Attorney General and then went back into legal practice, was recruiting lawyers to represent abused and neglected children. And he talked to me about it, and I was just like, I can't deal with that. It's just, to me, it is just such a horrendous circumstance that it just boggles my mind. But I know other people who represent these children in the Virginia court systems. Some of them are still with their families. So the system, when First Star is talking about legal rights and reforms, you're talking more broadly than just like the foster care system, or are you talking more generally?
Well, the whole family court system that determines whether a child is at risk staying with their natural family, and whether circumstances would change from time to time so that you could reunite them, because ideally you would want the family unit to be functional. Sometimes it's not possible, and that's when the kids end up in foster care. And the older they are, the less likely they are to be adopted. Mm-hmm. So if they can't be united, they end up on this course that leaves them in a very bad position. They'll age out of the system at the age of 21. 66% of the males who come out of the system by aging out will end up either homeless, in a mental institution, or incarcerated within 2 years of emancipation.
Oh my gosh.
And having watched my 22-year-old son just come home from college a few weeks ago and thinking what it would be like for him to come out with no resources and to find a job, a place to live, transportation, to look for a job without family structure and without finances. It's terrifying to think that we leave kids in that situation, but we do. And we pay for it down the road.
Well, I would think so, because we all talk about how expensive it is to take care of people who are in jail and this enormous cost, but yet we don't seem to step up at the front end where we might actually be able to impact some of these
Right.
kids. Now, let me step back a little bit, because people know foster care system is sort of the phrase, and you only hear about the foster care system when something horrible has happened and some child has gotten killed or abducted or something like that. In order to get into the foster care system, is that always something that happens through the court? Is that how that works?
It is. I mean, that is a legal status where the court has removed you from the jurisdiction of your natural family.
Okay.
And put you into the special system. There are a lot of other kids that are left without family. Mm-hmm. And in fact, when we started looking at the program locally here in Fairfax County, we discovered, working with the Fairfax County Public School System, that there are an awful lot of kids who are couch surfing. So they would be eligible.
Couch surf? What is couch surfing?
So picture a 15 or 16-year-old son or daughter of an illegal immigrant coming home from high school one day and discovering that their family has gone back because they were afraid of being, or just run away because they've been afraid of being sent back to their country. And so rather than getting into the system, the kids will go to friends' houses, and people will take them in and let them stay and go through high school that way. So they're not technically in the system, and they're just being sort of cared for by the community, which is a positive thing to say about the community as a whole, but it's rather a a bad thing to say about our environment that, that requires that sort of.
Well, you know, when you say that, I recall that when my younger son was in high school, he had a friend who turned 18 before he graduated from high school. And all of a sudden, he was living at my house. And I was kind of like, well, what happened that he's living here? And it was like, well, he turned 18, and his mother said, you're 18, you're out. And I was like, wow, that was a concept that I was, frankly, I was like shocked, like, seriously? Somebody does that?
Hard to imagine that there are parents out there that do abuse and neglect their kids. But there are.
Well, one of the things that in foster care, so you haven't terminated the parents' rights necessarily. So these kids can't be adopted. They just get placed with families.
They might be. In some cases, they are eligible for adoption.
Okay.
I'm not an expert on what the distinguishing criteria are, but clearly a lot of them do get adopted by their foster families. But the older they get, the less likely that becomes.
Right. I would think so. Now, what happens with because I saw something on that site that said some enormous percentage of abused and neglected children are under the age of 2.
Yes.
What is that? That just strikes me as, I mean, I understand, if you were to say to me, it's the teenagers, I would say, having raised 2 teenagers, I can understand that. But a baby? I don't get that. I mean, what is that?
Well, as you know, it doesn't require a license to be a parent.
Well, that's true.
And so there are people who have children that are not prepared to have children, either economically, emotionally, or even intellectually, to deal with the challenge of having little people around. And so they abdicate their responsibility. And it's a horrific thing, but it happens.
And are these children found because they've been ending up in emergency rooms? I mean, how does somebody find out that these really young children are being abused or neglected?
I think they're often reported by family or neighbors. I think that's probably the most common source, is somebody reporting them. The flip side of that is there are a lot of false alarms. One thing that dysfunctional families will do is one spouse will accuse another of abuse or neglect. And so if you looked at our statistics, you'll see there are several million reports of abuse and neglect, of which about 600,000 or 700,000 are investigated and determined that, in fact, there was abuse or neglect.
So it may be that the beginning of this system is the adult or the child protective service people. So I think those are the ones that get called in if somebody's trying to report it.
You have to evaluate if it's a safe environment for the kids.
Wow. That's tough, and I must say, it takes a certain courage for somebody who's legitimately doing it to do it, but on the other hand, the ability to turn somebody on your spouse that you don't like is there. Stay with us, we're going to be right back.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit ASHA.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
I need a... Welcome back. I am Bettina Lawton, and tonight's show is about people doing good in our community to help the most vulnerable among us. And with me is Gary Levine. He is a board member of an organization called First Star. You can find out all about it by going to firststar.org. It's a fabulous website that Gary built through his own company. Well, I should say that because I was truly impressed by the amount of information on that website, and the links worked, which to me, a website link working is like a major deal. I am not a professional. I only can do what I can do. Let's talk about some of this research, because we mentioned before the break that there are certain report cards and things like that that are sitting on the website talking about statistics. And I was surprised to discover that until relatively recently, and through the good work that First Star has been doing with some of its partners, that state laws are changing so that you can actually get information about children who are dying from abuse and neglect, or who have been seriously injured. And that information, state by state, is in these reports that you've got on the website.
Right, that's one of the report cards we do, assesses how each state does in terms of the transparency of statistics about deaths and near deaths. And some are very secretive about it. And on the surface, it is intended to protect the privacy of the families, obviously, for the kids who have died. Not maybe the most important thing. But the flip side of it is it does mask the problem. And even where we've recommended that states move towards more transparency, we always recommend that the court has the final say in whether or not some information would be released if there is some issue of privacy. But barring that ruling, then we should be able to get statistics that say how many of these, 30 kids a week that are dying in abused and neglected or neglecting families are happening in your jurisdiction.
Well, and I was surprised to see that it's like right around 2,000 kids a year that are actually dying from abuse and neglect.
Right.
And that was kind of like, wow. What surprised me, because we always think Virginia is so backward, is that Virginia actually has a higher score on the transparency than Maryland, which is usually considered to be a progressive jurisdiction, but apparently Maryland's not quite as forthcoming as they might be.
They're not, and they have been slow to react to recommendations that they have adopted in principle but not adopted in practice. So that's a challenge for us to walk that tightrope. I probably shouldn't say that on TV.
Well, you have, and it's live, so it's out there. Well, and I did find one of the statistics that I thought was really bad, and I don't think people who really understand the scope of the problem, that there are over 500,000 children who are considered seriously injured by abuse and neglect. This isn't some sort of minor problem. This is actually out there. There are a lot of children being impacted by this.
Right. Again, it's there's about 700,000 validated reports per year. Wow. Many of them, not many of them, but some of them can be resolved with the families. And so at this point in time, there's about 500,000 kids that are actually in foster care that have been removed from an abusive or neglectful home environment.
Wow. Well, I do want us to move to something a little bit more uplifting, because you are actually involved with academic help for these children, because as you said earlier, so many of them don't end up getting college degrees. So many of them, particularly the males anyway, end up in jail. That you all in First Star have started a program to try and help, is it get them into college, help them stay in college? Tell me about this program.
Getting them to college in the first place. So most of these kids have not been in an environment that fosters the reality that college is sort of an economic necessity, at least for a lot of careers. Certainly to have a good shot at a middle class or better kind of life takes a good education. And these kids are moved around from house to house. They don't have stability, and they don't have that kind of nurturing that says, we're going to make sure that after you get your high school academics behind you, you can move on and get the kind of education that you need to succeed in life. And we're trying to change that. So we had done some research. One of our fellows, a professor from the University of Southern California, San Diego, had suggested that we could help solve the problem by putting an environment on college campuses and bringing these kids into that environment, having them work with mentors from the college community and begin to see themselves in that kind of context. And out of that grew this First Star Foster Youth Academy program.
Well, we have a video on that I wanted to show. You sent me this 3-minute video, so we're going to do this. It was very moving, I must say. I was truly moved by it. So we are going to, I'm letting the folks in the control room know I'm about to start a video so they don't go, what in the world is that woman doing in there? So here it comes.
A quarter of foster kids are homeless after they age out of the system. A third of our girls and 2/3 of our young men end up in prison after aging out of foster care. Roughly a third of American 12th graders go on to get a bachelor's, but the comparable stat is 3% of foster kids.
My name is Rosario.
My name is Justin.
My name is Sarah. My name is Tiffany.
My name is Kenneth, and I attend the UCLA First Star Brewing Garden Scholars Academy.
The UCLA Garden Scholars Academy is a program that supports students in high school who are in foster care.
We are an academic program in that we are trying to get our students to college, but I think the foundation of our program is that we are family.
We think we can dramatically increase the number of these kids who go to college and thrive in college.
These kids are our responsibility, and I feel that First Star is one of the few organizations that really respects them and honors them as full citizens and humans, deserving of all the rights and protections that we are lucky enough to have.
A word I would use to describe First Star would be a family.
The people who are here inspire me to be who I want to be. They inspire me to go to college. They inspire me to be open, to be able to share, just to be all that you can be.
I practically run up to hug everyone.
My parents would say they don't want me. And when I came here, I felt like family. For the first time I had something.
I have something to look forward to. I have an opportunity to get out of my group home and go back to my family.
I do feel completely safe here.
This is something that foster kids deserve.
My goals are to go through college, and I want to double major in kinesiology and language.
I'm thinking more about forensic science.
I want to teach people. That's what I want to do.
I want to become a veterinarian when I grow up.
I will be a student at UCLA, majoring in criminal minds or psychiatry. I don't know. I'm still deciding.
I will be graduating probably from UCLA with a master's or a bachelor's.
I'm a brewer. When I graduate from high school, I'm coming to UCLA.
Every foster kid deserves a chance like this, to be around people who care about them so much. It's amazing.
Everybody has the chance to do whatever they want and has the opportunity to move on in life. And you don't have to worry about one less thing.
Well, there it is. I will say that the emotion expressed there of that this was a safe place. These were people who actually cared about them. Honestly, when the girl said my parents didn't want me, I was like, oh God, this is so horrible. How can people be this way? So the first one of these was set up in 2011, as I recall.
2012 was the first session. The kids you just saw in that video were a cohort of rising 9th and 10th graders, 30 of them. We brought them onto the UCLA campus. They stayed for 4 weeks in a sorority house, a retired sorority house,
Sorority houses can retire?
Yes, this was a retired sorority house, and put to good use, I might add. And so they got education, and they got, in fact, they all got 2 college credits for film classes they took, and they got a variety of other training and encouragement. And then after that residential part of the program, they went into a program where they meet 1 day a month, and then went back to the campus. We'll be going back to the campus this summer. We have a second one that is going into its second year at University of Rhode Island, and we're just starting up one here in Washington in conjunction with George Washington University. The residential program will be starting up in July.
So this year?
This year. And so we have our 30 kids selected, and it's exciting. For all the depressing statistics we've talked about, all you have to do is watch what happens when these kids get the opportunity to get your batteries charged. There's nothing wrong with these kids, as our founders want to say. It's we as a society are sort of their de facto parents if their natural parents are not able or willing to take care of them.
And the children get into the academy program through what, recommendations of teachers? How does that work?
We do go to through the school systems, and primarily through the social workers within the Child and Family Services organizations. The Greater Washington group has come through DC at Fairfax County, and so we put notice out to the social work community and talked about what the criteria were, and they made the nominations, and then we went and interviewed them, and just some very special people.
So you're still sort of seeing how this works, since you've got it in 3 places, but they haven't all sort of graduated through high school yet to see how many of them go on. So this is really a work in progress.
It is, and we've invested a lot in the research and financial planning of this so that it is replicable, because ultimately it is something we'd like to see in every community, and we can't do it by running around and trying to raise money to pay for them privately in each case. But we would like to see them in 100 communities in the next 10 years.
That would be wonderful, because I do think that getting them, if you can see where you could go by going to, for George Washington University, and seeing what it's like and saying, there is a life for me out there, then it gives you something that you can actually sort of visualize and say, yeah, I could do that. I could really get there.
And that they're not locked out, because when they come to us, for the most part, they don't think that that's an option for them. Even if they had the vision of what other people can do, they don't think they're allowed to.
Wow.
And we empower them, and they rise to the challenge. Phenomenal thing to watch.
Well, Gary, I want to thank you for coming and talking to me tonight. I want to tell folks, go to firststar.org, as I said. Take a look at the site. It is a 501c3. You can make contributions. So thank you for coming, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you very much.